I came out of the coma. I was in the coma for about 30 plus hours. And
Jesus. Anita. I mean, the story as you continue to, good Lord. 30 hours in a coma.
30 hours in a coma. The doctor they called was the doctor that had just come on duty, like
on call,
on call the night before that morning. So when he came in, and I greeted him by name, and the first thing he said was, "How do you know my name?" And I said, "Didn't you come in this morning and take fluid out of my lungs?" And he said, "Yeah, but you were in a coma at that time. There's no way you could have known that." And after he left the room, I said to my husband, Danny, I said, "Why was he surprised? Isn't he the doctor that told you that I'm not even going to make it through the night?" And Danny said, "You couldn't possibly have heard that conversation because it happened down the hallway, about 40 feet away, with the door closed between you and them." And
that's Anita Moorjani. I'm Sally Knopp. This is Miracles of Consciousness Radio, and we're talking about spontaneous healing. Anita's story and what you can do to help yourself heal now. Let's roll the video. Anita Moorjani's case of spontaneous healing is one of the most interesting I've ever encountered. She wrote a book, Dying to Be Me, and I will leave a link in the description box below so you can get that book. It will give you a whole lot of details we're not going to get into here, but we are going to be hitting on some key points in this video. And this link for the full video will be also in the description box below. It's Next Level Soul. Hope you give it a follow. It's one of my favorites. And Alex Ferrari. So before we get started, let's give a little bit of context about Anita Moorjani's life. What brought her to her coma? Now, it begins actually when she's born. She will tell you she was born culturally as Indian, and her parents, being in the culture, did not value females as much as males. Now, her mother did everything she could to spoil her and bring her up the way that she desired to be brought up, Anita, that is. But her father was a little bit disappointed, and she could feel that disappointment in her father. Although he was a good father, he did everything he could in the way he was raised to bring her up appropriately. Now, as we move forward in her story, she is set up to be married to somebody that she didn't want to marry. And she actually broke off the engagement. Now, this is a marriage her parents had set her up to, and that caused a lot of shame. And when her father died, they had not repaired their relationship. So that added another layer of shame, guilt, remorse, all those trapped emotional energies that we talk about, that Dr. Brad talks about, that Dolores Cannon talks about. She was building that energy. The next thing happens. Her best friend ends up diagnosed with cancer. And that scared her tremendously. And she was determined never to get sick. So she sets into motion a whole new way of living for herself. She's going to eat healthy. She's going to take her nutrition seriously. She's going to exercise. She's going to do everything that she can to avoid the C word. Now, fast forward. Her friend passes away. And now she's even more afraid of becoming sick. And this continues. This fear grows. And she's also working in the corporate world. So she's got all the anxieties that all of you working in the corporate world know happen. All those anxieties are now building. She has fear. She has so much fear that guess what happens to her? And despite her nutrition, her exercise, her being very aware of how to keep herself healthy, she gets sick. And she gets sick and diagnosed with lymphatic cancer. She said her tumors grew the size of golf balls. She lost a ton of weight, and in a short time, within a couple of years, she went into a coma. And as she says, she was in that coma for 30 plus hours. So side note, any of you who know somebody in a coma, they can hear you. So be careful what you're saying. Just a word of caution. And also to give them hope. Talk to them. They may not look like they're responding because they can't move their bodies, but they are very aware. They can feel your emotions. They can hear your thoughts. They can hear your words. It's why we call this Miracles of Consciousness Radio. It's quite the miracle. We're not trained to think this way, but it's what happens. We now know this. So the important thing to take away from her story, and we're not going to get into this entire video, we're going to hit the key points that I feel are important as a QHHT practitioner and energy healer so that we can highlight a few things that you might be doing yourself, and then we're going to work on how to remedy that while at home. So let's get into the rest of this video.
And though I say that everything I did contributed to it, I understood that every thought and every decision and every choice I had made over my life contributes to where I am today, to this point in my life. And I was able to see that every thought and decision, major decisions I'd made in my life and major choices I'd made in my life were made from a place of fear and not from a place of love. And so the fear accumulated over a lifetime caused my body to break down. And when I say that it was made from a place of fear, what I mean is that, for example, I was more scared of people's disapproval or of being shamed or of it was more important to me to win other people's approval than to follow my own heart. I was afraid of being judged. So every choice I made was because I was afraid of the consequences, as opposed to doing what I was passionate about doing or what I love to do. It's kind of like even taking a job for the money because you're afraid a better one won't come along, or you're afraid of not having the money, even though you hate the job. And then being afraid to quit a job you hate, even though you hate it and you're being bullied, because you're afraid you won't have the money. So I realized I needed to make choices from a place of love, and I had never done that. And the big reason I'd never done that is because I had never loved myself. So I never thought that I was worthy or deserving of love or doing things just because I'd love to do them.
Well, let me ask you this, Anita. What caused that lack of self-love? Was it programming? Was it environment, community, religion? What was that thing that devalued yourself in your own eyes?
It was absolutely programming, but it was programming from my community, from my culture. And it was, you see, I'm ethnically Indian. My parents are Indian, and they did the best they could, but it's the culture that I grew up in. And
so she gets into that. So what you need to pay attention to within your own life is what she said earlier. I thought. If you hear her, it was the way I thought. Those thoughts evoked the emotions. And I say this in every video. First comes the thought, that triggers the emotion, and that emotion is jet fuel for creating the manifestation of your life. And remember, way back, I did a Bruce Lipton review where he talks about thoughts can heal you, but if you're not careful, they can kill you. Her thoughts and emotions not coming into check, not understanding that she had to be mindful of her own thoughts, created this illness. So the lesson here, because as we are QHHT practitioner and energy healers, as an energy healer, if we're having a conversation on the phone, we're going to be talking about how you're thinking. What emotions are they building within your body? And how we can go ahead and clear those trapped emotional energies like Dr. Bradley Nelson does. Clear those trapped emotional energies so that the electromagnetic flow of your body can now be balanced and your body will begin to heal itself. Does it happen for everybody? It can. It can if the person is mindful, getting their heart and their mind to marry. And that is truly the big challenge. Because how many times, truly, how many times do all of us get to the point where I'm going to think positive? And we do. We think positive. But our emotions are, yeah, but we just canceled out everything. The yeah, but pay attention to that. Let's move on to some other key points.
I was just, I was euphoric in a way. I was like, I know I'm going to be fine. I know I'm meant to come back. And what started to happen is that in about 4 days, the tumors, which were golf ball sized tumors, actually started to soften and dissolve. They just started to disappear.
I'm going to stop it there because what she is telling you in her experience, she knew she was going to be healed. The thing, you don't have to be in a coma or near death to get to the point where she is to heal her own body. What we've learned as QHHT and energy healers is that there is definitely a process, a formula, if you will. I think even Joe Dispenza talks about the formula that creates the healing. First of all is becoming aware of what your thoughts and emotions are. In her case, fear is what caused her illness. Now, it got extreme to the point she went to a coma. Our point is, if you find yourself making all your decisions from a place of fear, you are going to create illness within your own body. And this is something that is actually in your control. Now, is this the be-all, end-all for all illnesses? No, I'm not saying that. But if you are somebody who is ill and you find that you are thinking negative thoughts and having those negative emotions, she's telling you, and what we've learned is that you have the ability to turn this around yourself. Now you're asking, how is that happening? Here's the thing. The formula, very simple. First, become aware of the thoughts and the emotions. And then once you have that, then you can say, okay, I know I'm having that. And I always tell my client to put a rubber band around your wrist and flip it every time you have a negative thought, and then restate that thought to a positive thought and say it out loud 3 times. Now, over time, this will actually shift where you are storing information to another area of the brain. Now, this was given to me by one of my clients who's a psychiatrist at Butler University, recently retired, and they had brain mapped this. She's telling me, you know what? Healing doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy. And this is what she's telling you too, Anita Moorjani. Become aware of your thoughts and emotions. And like Dr. Bruce Lipton will also tell you, your thoughts can heal you, but they can also kill you. So it is critical. Now, when she gets to the place, I know that my body is healed, her body began to heal itself. So even though everybody was like looking at her, the medical community, the doctors were looking at her body and like, yeah, this is just that surge before you pop and bounce. This wasn't the case. This event for her took place in 2006, in February 2006. It's 2024. She's still here. She knew. And the reason I am really highlighting this is because you can't believe, because believe is an element of doubt. You are thinking something even though logic tells you otherwise. She's saying, I know I'm healed. And so she is sort of drawing on those emotions that she felt in the other realm and bringing that through. And like Dolores Cannon had said in one of her teachings, she said, sometimes you got to fake it till you make it, and the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between either, whether it's real or faked. The subconscious mind, that's the conscious mind to sort that out. Because there's, everybody knocks the conscious mind like it's really bad, but it isn't. It's there to serve you, just like the subconscious. But it's also understanding the language of both so you get control of both. So let's continue on. So let's talk about why bad things happen to good people. Here's Anita's take.
Ask you your opinion on this, because this is a question I get asked all the time, is why do bad things happen to good people? And, you essentially from the story you've told, you were a good person. And yet this cancer showed up and it was pretty violent.
Yes,
and
it
it was pretty rough, and it was a long time, and organs were falling, you get into coma, all of this stuff. That was a lot of negative stuff. Why do you think, what's your understanding of why negative things happen to good people?
So interestingly, from the other realm, the things that happen to me and a lot of the negative things that happen aren't seen as negative in the big picture,
right,
in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
One of the analogies that I use when I'm describing this, because words are very limiting in describing the experience and the magnificence or the magnitude of the experience or of what we feel on the other side. And the time that we are here in this physical time and space is a real blip. It's just a tiny...
not even a blink.
Not even a blink. If you ask me now to look back on my life, do I regret having all that happen to me? Not at all. I wouldn't be where I am today if it didn't happen. So I saw my life kind of like, if you imagine a tapestry, a huge tapestry, like really huge, maybe 50 foot by 100 foot or something. And from a distance, you have to stand really far back to see the whole tapestry. It's so big. And you see that it's a beautiful picture. It's a mural of, maybe nature and trees and meadows and brooks and sky and the sunshine and fields. But when you get really close, you can see that the tapestry is made up of woven silk threads, just woven, all the different colored threads woven together to create this beautiful picture. Imagine if one of those threads is you, and it's the trajectory of your life. And that's kind of how it looked to me. I saw my life as a trajectory, as part of a perfect picture. And I could see that in that moment that I had traveled along the length of this thread, but I could see where I still was yet to go. So I could see where I had touched all these other threads, which were other lives, and where I still had to go if I chose to come back, and what other threads I was yet to touch.
You saw this on the other side.
This was on the other side. This was my understanding. I'm using the tapestry as an analogy, but it was more like a clarity and understanding of seeing me and all my lives together. It's like, wow, so this is part of a total experience. So even the negative things that happen, we feel it as something huge, but it is actually just one little sector of a total experience, which is part of our own evolution, our soul's evolution.
So that sounds amazing, by the way, and it's a beautiful description of that. But for someone who's going into the crapper right now,
oh yes, it's hard.
who's in the shite, as they say, in it right now, what advice do you have for them?
So I've been through that.
Yes, you have.
I've been through that.
Yeah.
When I was dying, I had people telling me that, oh, this is your karma.
Oh, good.
And it made me feel even worse.
Oh, these people were great around you. My God, you picked a bunch of winners, didn't you? Jeez. It's your karma. You deserve this. This is what it is. Sorry.
I was told you have to do more good work to erase your karma, and I was like, I've already been a doormat my entire life. Yeah, so what I would say to people who are going through stuff, what I do is I help people to shift what they're focusing on, because and I hope this helps people, but I empathize with people who are going through something really awful, like an illness or grief. with an illness particularly, a big part of the suffering, and I know this was the case for me, is the hopelessness and the belief that this is my life now, or this is going to lead to my death, and then it leads to a fear of death. But what I tell people is to shift their focus, and I ask them questions like, if you got your health back, if you were 100% well, if the doctor gave you a clean bill of health right now, what would you do with the rest of your life? What would you do first to celebrate? And now, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Start planning that now. So we shift the focus from one of from one of dying, or from one of your illness getting worse and worse. We shift it to one of wellness and hope. So you bring hope back to the person. Do you know that if you are living in a state where you feel more hope and you have hope for the future and you can create a passion for the future, you're more likely to heal from your illness anyway.
Right.
And if you're talking about people that are just going through awful times, whether it's financial family, relationships, all of it, I still suggest to them, start focusing, as hard as it is, but when your mind is able to, start focusing on what it is you want to see in your life instead. Focus on what is the kind of relationship you would love to have, or what is the kind of financial situation you would love to see yourself in. Or if you're feeling lost and hopeless and purposeless, what is the purpose you would like? What if you could be doing anything you want? What is it that you want to be doing? Because I speak a lot in my workshops and in my videos and all about energy, our own energy. And it's important for us to uplift our energy. And when we uplift our energy, that's when we actually start to feel better, but not only feel better, but you know how I said that we are all, and we're all very sensitive, and we are made up of energy. Energy is a limiting word, but we are basically souls or spirit. And what is spirit made of? It's not physical, it's non-physical. And the more that you can magnify this energy, the more that you actually magnify your life, and the more you actually bring to yourself things that match your energy.
So I'll go ahead and stop it there because this is a really long video. The link is in the description box below for your full review. But the key takeaway here is how you do spontaneous healing. And the key takeaway is, first, understand what your thoughts are. She's telling you she has been to the other side, and in that realm, she understood that every decision that she ever made was from a position of fear. Fear, over time, over and over and over, created, and as we now understand through Dr. Bradley Nelson and Dolores Cannon, is those trapped emotional energies. If they are not processed, and who does that? I mean, we do try. A lot of us try, a lot of us don't, because one, life just gets in the way. You know, you've got to do this, you got to do that, you got to keep the engine running, and it's got to be smooth. And sometimes we lose self-care. So pay attention to those emotions. Now, Dr. Bradley Nelson and Dolores Cannon will talk about the trapped emotional energy. Now, the first part you need to do is get rid of the old stuff. People talk about shadow work. That's identifying what was triggered in the past, coming to the understanding of what that is and allowing it to go, getting into the emotion and feeling it. Now, in my work, I mean, if you've already gone through the ick, why do you want to go back through the ick again? That's just me. But also, you got to be careful if you're looking to get somebody to do shadow work. Make sure that this is somebody who is well entrenched. Aaron Abke would be the person to follow on this because he understands shadow work. The danger in shadow work, if you're following sort of the wrong person, is that the vernacular you, has a tendency to constantly look for the next thing that needs to be healed, because you don't instantly feel like you did when you were, a kid and you had this free-for-all life. Some of us not so much, but in a time when you felt that absolute freedom and your body felt great. So there can be so many layers, and she talks about that. There are so many layers to sort of cut through. And what you want to do is start paying attention to those emotions. Those emotions pay attention to the thoughts. That creates the emotions. And those two combined will begin to create the manifestation. Now, if I go and tell you, go out there and buy a lottery ticket, you're all going to win. You might run out there and say, yeah, Sally said I'm going to win. But then your emotion go, yeah, but you just canceled it out. So mastering those thoughts in your head and making sure that they marry with the proper emotion will give it jet fuel. It may take some time. Now, when you are in a state like she's talking about, when you're in the stuff, and she's talking about, I'm going to ask you the question, what kind of life do you want? That's a great question to ask. Instead of being focused on what isn't right with your world, start focusing. I love this part. Dolores Cannon. She said, you cannot eat a steak in one bite, so you eat it in small bites. And that means instead of focusing that your life go from here to perfect, it's not I Dream a Genie, it's not Bewitched, although as you become more in alignment, and that means coming out of resistance, anything that's fearful, and coming more into a loving environment within yourself, then those manifestations do come quicker and quicker and quicker. It also comes really quick when you're going the other direction, but we don't want to go there. We're not going to focus on that. So she's telling you, you have to reapply your thoughts. If they are negative, you got to stop it, become aware of it. And that's why the doctor of psychiatry from Butler University said, hey, we brain map this, put a rubber band on your wrist, flip it. And I've had a lot of my clients do that, and it's worked beautifully. Sometimes it takes longer than others. Everybody's different. But if you have the persistence to stay with it, your transformation will begin when you become aware of your thoughts. And then when those thoughts, what emotions are they bringing up? Remember, the past is done. You don't want anybody, if you've been traumatized, you don't need them living rent-free in your head. So the best thing you can do is stop dwelling, stop being in that space. Because like she said, everything is frequency. If your thoughts and emotions are negative, your frequency is going to be low. And if their frequency is low, that means anything that you send out, you're going to get back. So do you want more of that? I don't think so. Who'd want that? You want to change your life, and that does take a bit of an effort. And it is hard. And we're not saying it isn't hard. But we also say if you stick to it with some of the practice, you can begin slowly to turn that dial up bit by bit by bit. And one day you'll look back and you'll realize you have come such a far distance. You'll come to a place where you look back and like, I cannot believe I was a negative thinker. And it might be really hard to even have a negative thought. Now, here's the beautiful thing about doing this work within yourself. If you are carrying ancestral energy with this, that's imprinted and encoded in your DNA, the trauma that gets passed down. When you heal that yourself, like Dr. Bradley Nelson will tell you, Dolores Cannon will tell you this, and a few others, it will lift and cure and heal the person that felt that trauma, that passed it down. Doesn't matter where it is in space and time. It can go back 30-some generations. If you heal, it sends a ripple effect out that will affect everyone that particular thing that you got touched. And that includes your offspring if you have them. So, in essence, and I can't stress this enough, You can start with your thoughts, and there's different techniques that you can use. Now, it can be difficult. I get it. It took me 10 years to figure it out. You don't have to wait 10 years. These are tips that I know work. I know it works because I had that tip with the rubber band came from a professor of psychiatry from Butler University, and they brain mapped it. I passed it on to my clients who use it, and over time, it works beautifully. Don't overcomplicate an already complicated situation in your own life. The other thing, too, is, and I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you've ever gone and had some Reiki healing and it feels really good for a while, the reason it stops feeling good is because you're slipping back into old patterns. You truly have to go through a paradigm shift. You are in control of you, which is why I tell everybody to get on my website, sallyknop.com, on the homepage, I'm dissolving the cloud. Do what I do, and then you know yourself that when you get out there on a clear day and there's a puff of cloud there, do a small one. You don't have to do the big one I started with. Do a small one and start dissolving that cloud, because, as Anita said, you've got to know in the moment, I am healed. And the best way to do that is start dissolving clouds. And when you see that you can dissolve a cloud that's 15, 20,000 feet in the air, obviously you can't even touch it. And even if it was surrounding you, you couldn't do anything about it because, it's vapor. But when you can dissolve a cloud, think what else you can do. That is when you have your aha moment that nobody's telling you about. I mean, Anita can tell you some techniques. I can tell you techniques. Everybody can tell you techniques. But until you get into yourself, understand, and R.J. Spina would tell you this too, healing isn't out there. It's not Anita telling you. It's not me telling you. It's you. You have the power. Coming into that alignment, I am. I know. I am. My body is healed. I am joyfully receiving healing now, 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 now. I am joyfully receiving. I am joyfully receiving all the abundance of the universe. I am. If you're looking for a relationship, isn't it nice that the universe has provided me the right and perfect person in my life that lifts me up, gives me joy, and we have mutual love and respect for each other. Isn't it nice? As if it's already there. And anything that I'm telling you, I know you already know, most of you do, but sometimes you need a little bit of help. And that's why, if you'll actually put these things into practice, you can start healing yourself. But if you do struggle, and I did, Dr. Locke, who I love so much to this day, saved my life. She told me over and over, Sally, you need to do this. And it's like I heard it, but then I didn't hear it because I didn't change how I was thinking. I could be pretty stubborn. Yeah, but. She said, stop with the yeah, buts. And then this doctor, this anesthesiologist, taught me how to heal myself. And I am sharing this information that the psychiatrist has taught me and what Dr. Locke told me too. And, I've got my clients who will tell you the same thing. So let's start igniting the superhuman that's in you. You can start at home. If you want help, I'm here. Reach out to me. We can do a lot, like Dr. Bradley Nelson says. Let's clear those trapped emotional energies that have been building up over the years and clear those out. And then you can start, once you get those cleared out, and once we come to some identifiers that you are going through, those triggers, then we can start clearing those too. Or you can just recognize them and know that it's not your monkey, not your circus, and you are okay to allow it to go. Command it gone. Remember, you have the power to command, and your subconscious mind has the responsibility to follow your commands. So when you know that, what commands are you giving it? That's what you need to think about. Now, for Anita's book, Dying to Be Me. It's the link for that is in the description box below, as well as Next Level Soul and this particular video. So you can go watch the whole thing without looking at me. Anyway, reach out to me if you need me or somebody like me. Get those trapped energies cleared and start doing what she's told you to do and I've told you to do and other people told you to do, so you can start igniting your superhuman in you. Thanks for watching. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe button so if you want, you can get more content, and that also helps other people find us. Take care for now.